Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, on the 27th anniversary of the start of the 1994 Rwandan Genocide, France says that it will open the Rwanda archives of former French President François Mitterrand to better understand his country's role in the atrocities. Also, days after talks collapse in Kinshasa, Egypt warns Addis Ababa that a dispute over the management of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, which spans the Nile, could lead to conflict. And rap star Akon's in Uganda looking for his next African investment. The Senegalese-American singer has offered land to build a futuristic city as he plans to invest $12 million in the country's entertainment industry. But first, as commemorations were held in Paris on Wednesday to remember the approximately 800,000 lives lost in the Rwandan genocide against the Tutsis in 1994, France announced that it would open up presidential archives on Rwanda. France has long faced criticism for its role in the slaughter, but last month a report commissioned by President Emmanuel Macron admitted some responsibility.
In this Parisian park, the city's mayor, France's foreign minister and the Rwandan ambassador gathered to commemorate the 27th anniversary of Rwanda's genocide. France is keen to improve its relations with Rwanda, poisoned by its role in the 1994 massacre of the Tutsis. A report published last month said that France bears overwhelming responsibilities for the genocide, though it stopped short of calling it complicit.
Dans le rapport du clerc, il y a pu y avoir des mots très forts, très engagés, mais qui se sont conclus par un refus de voir la complicité de la France alors que nous la connaissons. Elle fut avant, pendant, après le génocide contre les Tutsis. Donc ce que nous attendons, c'est une parole forte, claire, de vérité et d'excuses de la part du président de la République.
Emmanuel Macron ordered the report after years of accusations that France didn't do enough to halt the genocide, which saw an estimated 800,000 people slaughtered, mainly from the Tutsi minority, over a 100-day period in 1994. The report concluded that French authorities remained blind to the preparations for genocide as they supported the racist and violent Rwandan government. A commission studied 8,000 archived documents of France's actions in Rwanda during that time, records which the French government ordered be made public today.
Aucune archive dans celles que nous avons consultées, ne montre la volonté de la France de s'associer à l'entreprise criminelle. Donc ça veut dire que la France n'a pas voulu, effectivement, le génocide des Tutsis. Maintenant, je veux dire, les responsabilités accablantes que l'on atteste montrent effectivement que, je veux dire, il y a cet aveuglement, et cet aveuglement, il faut le questionner.
Rwandan President Kagame welcomed the report, describing it as an important step towards a common understanding of France's role in the genocide. It said it would release its own investigative report in the coming weeks.
Well, earlier I asked Dr. Felix Dahinda, a researcher and author specialised in Rwanda affairs, about how far France's opening up of its archives will go to improving understanding of what led to the slaughter.
The history of the genocide in Rwanda, particularly in the last couple of years, has been marked by a lot of different emerging narratives about what actually happened. As the time goes, there have been a lot of manipulation about the facts and about what actually did happen. Of course, victims do know what happened. Those who are in Rwanda on the scene know what happened, but not necessarily the younger generations, for instance, in France or across the world. So opening up the archives, it's very important both for moving away from a lot of emotional manipulations on a lot of emerging narratives to the facts. The narratives the archives do speak. They do contain timely reports about how the conflict was emerging, how the genocide was brewing, if you will. So opening up the archives will pretty much enlighten our understanding, at least the understanding of many who did not already know what was the role of France in that tragedy.
Now, the anniversary of the genocide is always a particularly painful time for Rwanda. But beyond the diplomatic significance of the report and the commission, does the release of the Duclair report likely offer any relief for victims?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's very well known that there have been already for many years victims associations in France, but also in Rwanda, pretty much denouncing France for what it did, first of all, but also for non-recognition of what it did. So, and there have been quite a number of reports by victims associations, but also by even the Rwandan government working with victims associations. We have two reports, for example, the Mucho report, but also the Mutsinzi reports on the plane. All of those did establish quite a number of facts, but also quite a lot of other many reports and accounts and and a lot of activism around the association survey. So a lot was known already, but the fact that there was a lack of recognition, especially from the French officialdom, from the French government, of any role at all, except most of the time saying that France did play nothing but a positive role in ending the conflict, in stopping the genocide. So the fact that this is being opened now, made accessible to all, in order to see with this very quite well-documented and damning report about the role of France, basically showing that France did know already from the early 90s what was happening. There were predictions, for example, of the possibility of more than 500,000 Tutsis to 700 Tutsis being killed. That was already very early in the conflict. So that, from a French official writing to the French government in a telegram, for instance, is very important. It's very important for victims because many will feel today vindicated by the fact that both the report is there to state the facts, but also the archives are even being opened to know precisely what the French government knew and why did it continue still to support the genocidal government.
And how do you imagine these moves by France to admit some responsibility can tangibly affect bilateral relations between the countries? Both sides appear keen on a rapprochement, but without an apology, does it go far enough for a real shift?
I mean, Rwanda has been quite a lot pragmatic about this, I believe. They know that France seems to take quite long in acknowledging its responsibilities in past atrocities. We know about Algeria, among many other things. And the mere fact that France today makes a step, for example, many Rwandans do believe that there is some quite active role France played beyond just supporting. So many Rwandans will probably argue that there was complicity. The report does not fully deny that. There was simply no finding. But even the president said that that can be left to judges, among many others. So I believe that this will be a step, at least in cooling things down from the time when, for example, the diplomatic relationships were being broken in early years when France denied any role. So this will be quite a step in the right direction in starting for the next step, maybe.
Dr. Felix Dahinda there speaking to me a little earlier on. Now, Ivory Coast president has said that his predecessor, Laurent Gbagbo, is welcome back in the country after having been acquitted of crimes against humanity by the International Criminal Court last week. Gbagbo and his former right-hand man, Charles Blé Goudé, were accused in connection to post-electoral violence in 2010 and 2011 that followed Gbagbo's refusal to accept electoral defeat by Alassane Ouattara. More than 3,000 people were killed. Ouattara didn't mention on Wednesday the 20-year jail term that Gbagbo officially still faces in Ivory Coast after he was convicted in absentia in 2019. And Egypt's warned Addis Ababa that a dispute over the management of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, which spans the Nile, could lead to conflict. Along with Sudan, the countries have been in a long-running dispute over the project. Talks between the nations in Kinshasa failed this week. Nicolas Chemin has more.
The latest round of talks on the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam ended in deadlock. Ethiopia wants to add 13.5 billion cubic meters of water this year to the dam's reservoir on the Nile. But Egypt and Sudan fear this will limit their water supply from the river. On Wednesday, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi did not mince his words.
في النهاية أنا بقول لكم تاني وبقول للأشقاء في أثيوبيا بلاش إن إحنا نصل لمرحلة إنك أنت تمس نقطة مية من مصر. لأن الخيارات كلها مفتوحة. الخيارات كلها مفتوحة.
In Khartoum, Sudan's irrigation minister agreed with Egypt's point of view.
لما نقول إنه سد النهضة بيأثر على الأمن القومي السوداني برضو ده ما تهويل. لذلك بنفتكر إنه المجتمع العالمي مفروض ينتبه قبل فوات الأوان.
Despite this rhetoric, Ethiopia said it would continue to fill its reservoir during the rainy season, which normally begins in June or July.
ውሃ ይፈሳል ዛሬ ብትዋጋው ነገም ይፈሳል ነገ የሚሆነው አይታወቅም እንግዲህ ስለዚህ የዚህ አይነት አስተሳሰብ ተገቢ አይደለም እንዲህ አይነት ነገርን ወደ ላይ ማራገቡ አይ ቲንክ ለማንም ሀገር አይጠቅምም
Egypt and Sudan have called for the US, the EU and the UN to also take part in the negotiations. But Ethiopia has rejected this and wants the African Union to continue supervising the talks.
And finally, rap star Akon is in Uganda looking for his next big African investment. The Senegalese-American singer was offered land upon which to build a futuristic city he's envisioned to help drive development. Akon's made a name for himself as a pan-African businessman. In 2014, he started a group that backs solar energy projects in rural parts of several African countries. And his most ambitious goal is to create a $6 billion utopian city in Senegal. He's now said that he's planning on investing $12 million in Uganda's entertainment industry.
Uganda is definitely a hub for investment. We're looking to put together a huge festival here. We haven't announced it just yet, so you got a sneak preview of what we want to do. But we do want to be able to invest in the local artists. One of the reasons for the festival is to expose the local artists here in Uganda, because they play a big role in East African music along with Kenya and Rwanda, but ultimately, and Congo as well too. But ultimately, I mean, that's on a list of things that we're doing. That's one of the reasons why we're even doing the Akon, entertainment city here, is because we want to be able to focus and showcase the entertainment all throughout East Africa. And Uganda's the lucky one right now to be able to get it.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks for joining us, and do so again if you can. Take care.
All Egypt was gripped by the spirit of Cairo's Tahrir Square.
I lived magic afterwards to just steal the revolution quickly.
But it was an abortive revolution. First, the Muslim Brotherhood took control of the country. Then, in a further twist of history, the military ushered in an authoritarian regime.
The Egyptian government, it's hostage-taking.
Avoir une opinion différente du gouvernement et l'exprimer en Égypte vous met dans la catégorie de terroriste.
Newfound growth, colossal projects, and the opposition silenced.
Tahrir Square revisited all this week here on France 24.